Yeah, it really pulled on those emotional heartstrings, like right off the bat, too, with obviously touching upon the passing of Chadwick Boseman, who was T'Challa in the movie. How do we think it handled T'Challa's death right off the bat?
Oh, I thought it was actually incredibly tasteful and well done, and that is the best strength of the movie, of how it helps us in the grieving process of, we lost this incredible actor who played this incredible character, and the movie is about that in a lot of ways. Just that in the opening, it starts, with that moment with Shuri, finding out, what happened to her brother, and then that the Marvel logo, which normally has the Marvel fanfare and a bunch of flashy images, is just a quiet tribute to T'Challa and the Black Panther with no music. I heard people crying in the theater when that happened. Just like there were sniffles immediately, and it was very powerful. And so I thought throughout the whole movie, and in the way it ended on Shuri, coming to grips with what happened, was great. Because a lot of the time in blockbuster movies, when this happens, we don't get a chance to mourn the character on screen. Yeah. I can think of 2 instances where this has happened before, something similar. Heath Ledger playing the Joker. Yeah. That had already been filmed. That was in the can. So it wasn't like they could go back and change something. And nor would it be appropriate to mourn the Joker. Yeah. It's a little different. And then Rise of Skywalker with Leia, I think they tried their best to reuse old footage to make something. And I appreciate that they tried, but I wouldn't say it quite worked. Wasn't as effective as what they did here. I thought this was very respectful and tasteful, and a good way to remember the character and the actor.
And the movie does take a really light touch in sort of how it converses with Chadwick's passing. It's not out there to specifically say, oh, this is how T'Challa died, or T'Challa died in combat. It's not important. The important thing is that he's gone. And what does that mean for people? What does that mean for the audience that had so much invested in T'Challa and in Chadwick Boseman as the standard bearer for that character? And the movie really takes pains to get off to a start that is honoring, what a rough situation this is for everybody involved.
That's what I really liked about it. I feel like as much as it was a tribute to Chadwick and T'Challa, it was also a tribute to the grieving process. It was extremely honest, and you kind of have this kind of very sad real world parallel where the creative team and the cast has to deal with losing their friend and their creative partner, just like, the characters in the movie have to deal with losing their son, their brother, their lover, their friend. But what I really liked about the movie is it picked up a year after his death, because that's kind of a weird, kind of stage of grieving where it's between short-term and long-term grief. It's kind of where it still feels kind of fresh, but the world kind of expects you to move on already. And you kind of see that with United Nations Council, where they're we're sorry about your king, but where's the vibranium? And I think, you kind of see each character dealing with it in their own way. You have Ramonda, who finds, kind of comfort in the spiritual, and she tries to express that to Shuri, who's more science driven and doesn't really, vibe with that as much. So this my favorite part of the movie. I just thought it was so honest and accurate, and it's grieving.
Yeah, the emotional impact was definitely there. It was funny because it kind of took me back to that moment when we all found out about Chadwick Boseman's passing. So it was nice to kind of see that reflected in the film a year or so later, or has it been just a year?
It had been 1 year on the anniversary of his death. They bring that up in the movie. Yeah, which is why the queen, takes Shuri to the riverbank, right, for her to burn the garments and end the grieving process.
And I loved that scene too, because you have Ramonda trying to comfort her with the spiritual, and Shuri's it's a very relatable scene for anyone who's lost someone, and then someone's well, they're in a better place, or they're still with you, and if you can't relate to that, then that's really hard. And again, that's one of the things I really love about this movie.
And we should probably mention the fact that one of the reasons Shuri takes this as hard as she does is that opening scene, we see her trying to synthesize the heart-shaped herb, which Killmonger burned all of in the first Black Panther movie, and she's unable to do it. She can only get the confidence level up to just 28%, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so she puts it on herself. So there's the survivor's guilt aspect. I could have stopped this. I could have done something. And it really does ground that personal drama that Wakanda Forever is so invested in with Shuri's character in such a relatable place to feel if I could have done something else, I could have fixed this. And it's a heartbreaking place to start from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's brutal how it starts, of her learning the news of what happened. very much mirrors how I think that actually I felt when I heard the news of just suddenly like he was fine one second and the next, he's gone. And I appreciate them, including that in the movie in that way. And then to what you were saying of that moment where she says, the queen, she says something along the lines of like, I feel the breeze on my back, and that's T'Challa. And then in the end, I thought the end shot of just Shuri on the beach, finally having that moment for herself and allowing her to like feel her brother, and we get that flood of memories. I was fully crying at that point.
Yeah.
And I thought it's a great thing to do. Start on Shuri learning this news, and then end on her like finally, accepting what happened.
Well, that line specific, there's something else that Ramonda says in that line. It's like, it's like a firm but like confident hand on my shoulder. And in that last shot of Shuri, I was almost thinking like, are we gonna see like a hand come onto her shoulder to end the movie? I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
This movie actually makes no attempt to physically represent T'Challa, which is the right call. I think,
yes.
People have different opinions on how the Rise of Skywalker handled Leia and ended up keeping her involved in the action. And I was not a fan of how that worked. And so I think the movie did the right thing by keeping him out of it.
Now Shuri, she definitely